Hello, welcome to Birmingham Property News Show. Yes, I'm Ewen. I'm the guy that sits the other side of the desk and you never see, you only hear. And James sits on this side of the desk and does it all. But this week, they've let me out of the cupboard where they send me with a radio mic and I am going to host the show. We can see how it goes and you can write in and say, oh, we much prefer Ewen if you really want.
Absolutely.
Or not. But we've got a guest and we've got James here, so don't worry, you will get your fixer, James. How you doing, mate?
I'm all right, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thanks for letting me have a go at this.
That's all right, because I think you got the introduction wrong now when you said you're doing it this week. It's actually going to be every week.
Oh, right. I didn't realise that, mate.
I really quite like just sitting here. This is really chilled. I don't need to worry about pressing any buttons and where I have to look and concentrate. I can actually just be here and just have a proper debate now and just argue with people.
Okay.
So I want to be in my element, to be honest.
Fair enough. And joining us this week, the ever lovely Tess Latham from what company? You're a mortgage advisor, aren't you?
I am. I work at the Mortgage Advice Bureau.
Okay. And so based on the fact the first conversation that we're going to have today and what topic we're having, I'm guessing I'm going to have to come down on the mortgage advisor side.
Yes, you are.
Otherwise, I'm in big trouble. So you're from the Mortgage Advice Bureau.
Yeah.
What do they do?
We specialise in residential and buy-to-let mortgages. So basically we have access to 108 lenders, over 11,000 products, and we also have access to special deals that you can get and incentives.
Right.
So they're quite a good mortgage broker.
11,000 products on the market for mortgages. Good grief. I mean, is that daunting for you? It's not daunting for you because you're the specialist, but I mean, it's got to be daunting for the customer, surely.
Not really. It's just when you take their circumstances into consideration, kind of when you put it into the system, the filters down to the best one.
Right.
So then you look through the list of lenders and we know off the top of our heads which lender we're going to put now the criteria.
Yeah. Good. So this week, the format we're going to follow is everyone's brought a story. I think you've stolen that format from somewhere else, James. But stop, thief. But we're going to go through them, and hopefully, I will be educated somewhat because I have to say, when it comes to mortgage advice, property news, and all that kind of stuff, I'm a really good photographer, and not a lot else. So let's kick it off then. Tess, you're starting us off, and I thought this was dead interesting because I looked in the show notes that James had sent through, and with your story, I hadn't even thought about the fact there was going to be a difference between mortgage broker versus mortgage banker or anything like that. So take us through what your story's about.
Right, basically. When you go to a mortgage banker, such as your high street lenders, you're limited to their deals. So they will give specific deals, and the only mortgages you could get are the ones that they offer. When you go to a mortgage broker, like for me, for instance, I have access to 108 lenders. So I have got all of their products. So that's how we accumulate products.
Right, okay. So what's what's the real difference for the end user over the two roles in terms of beneficial need or that kind of stuff?
What do you mean?
So as in the difference between them is there a benefit to going to one or the other for the end user, and depending on which type of person they are, what they're looking for, whether they're first time buyers or...
Oh yeah, everyone's got different criteria. Some people can be lending into retirement. Most banks I know do not do that. Some people are self-employed, and other lenders specialise differently in self-employed. So we've just got access to them all. So basically we can specify which lender.
Okay. So why would dive in at any point in the conversation, James? But so why would you separate yourself out as being one or the other when there's an overlap, or is it just purely the services that you want to offer and don't want liability for? Or?
Well, I'm not going to answer that. I'm just diving in, but I'm quite relaxed here.
You are, aren't you? Yeah. Do you want a cup of coffee, mate?
Good. Yeah, I might have one. Yeah, actually. Obviously, my daughter's in here, the studio today as well, but she's off camera. But she's just sat there, obviously having a little look, seeing how it all works, aren't you? But yeah, just before on the test, I think there's a good point there because as when people come to, buy property, one of the key, obviously we go to qualify all the clients who are looking, and, we'll ask them, where they're at with their finances, do they need to sell their property, etc. They're looking for a mortgage. And one of the instant things we always get is, I've got a mortgage in principle, straight away, with NatWest. For example, many other banks out there, but with NatWest. And they haven't got a mortgage in principle. They've just been told that they'll be able to, borrow up to £200,000, for example. But until, they've actually found the house and they can give the address, it can change. And there is this horrible, horrible thing at the moment where if the estate agent recommends the mortgage person, they don't want to use the mortgage person that's been recommended by the estate agent. And I really don't understand it, because I think for the independent estate agents like myself, there's many of us out there, we're not the corporates, we don't own the mortgage company that, the mortgage advisors from. They are completely independent to us altogether. And the reason, like, for example, we would recommend Tess, obviously, sat to my right, is because she can come to you, sit down with you, and when you're getting a mortgage, regardless if it's the first time or, the second time, it's a huge decision again, and things change constantly, in the marketplace. Like even in the last few days, 100% mortgages are now on the tip of everyone's tongue again. Yeah. I didn't think I would ever hear that again ever since 2008, 2009, when 100, 110, 120, 125% sort of destroyed it a little bit. But they're back, but the concept of it's completely different. You can have 100% mortgage as long as your mum and dad or, a family member can put 10%, is it 10%? 20% in an account that's locked, basically. And as long as I think it's for 3 years, isn't it? Yeah. See, and this is what I mean. See, look, you've got Tess here answering the questions, and this is the point. We don't know them. We're not abreast with what's going on in the mortgage market 24/7. And this is why you want to sit down with someone like Tess and then literally say, look, this is what we're looking for. This is what we need. If it's a buy-to-let, first-time buyer, you're upgrading, downgrading, etc. as well. And, let them search the whole of the marketplace, because even though you may have banked with NatWest for the last 20 years, it doesn't mean they're always going to give you the best deal. Yeah. But I'm just using NatWest as an example. So before they pick me up, Lloyds, Halifax, etc., there's plenty others out there. Yeah, no. But you need to shop around, because at the end of the day, that payment's coming out your pocket. You're paying for it. It doesn't matter who you're with. You're still paying for it. You've got to get the best deal for yourself. And then shop around when it comes up to, if it's a 2-year, fixed term, for example, then you need to check it again. And if you've got a great mortgage broker and not a mortgage banker, I'll be very careful how I say that, is that then, your mortgage broker's then going to be back in contact with you to say, a good one anyway, I'm sure you are, Tess, would be back on and say, look, your fixed term's coming to an end. Let's sit down again. Let's see if you will be on the best deal by staying where you are. Or let's see if your circumstances have changed and what's in the marketplace.
Yeah, do you think there's kind of a change in the financial rules has made a benefit to the separation between estate agents and mortgage advisors? Either of you, but there's still a hangover that goes back to the days pre financial authority rules, whereby you'd have an estate agent in one shop, mortgage advisor in the next shop, and then there was a connecting door between the two, and it was a bit less divided.
Yeah, well, I think that's how it started, though, wasn't it? Is that the larger estate agents had that, and it was easy to say, well, actually, we'll just go and buy you. We'll buy your company out, and it'll just fall under our corporate umbrella. And I just think there is just a little bit of a stigma of the estate agents recommended, mortgage brokers, and it's instantly, no, I'm already approved. I've already got my decision in principle. I'm already speaking to somebody else. And actually, it's not, that's great. You do need to shop around, but, have a second opinion. It's just like when you go to sell a house, 60% of property sales are actually sold by the second agent instructed, not the first one.
Right.
So you need to shop around and you need to see, and there's a reason for that. The second one's obviously just doing a better job. They've looked at it differently. They're probably giving you a bit more care and attention. The marketing's right. They've given you the right valuation of the property. And a mortgage broker, a good one from day one, is going to do exactly the same. They're going to sit there, listen to your needs, what you need, and make sure that you're getting the best deal and you understand what you're actually going on as well. And that's one of the reasons why we recommend the mortgage brokers, and rather than just saying, well, you could log on to this website and, you can get a deal, and as an estate agent would get a kickback and things like this, but you're not getting that personal attention, and actually you don't know if you're going to be getting the best deal. And I think that's what it comes down to. And I think the market is shifting slightly again to where people have got fed up of the corporate wheel, so to speak, and they want to now have that personal approach again, just to make sure that, you know, they are getting, you know, the right deal, and the person looking after them is understanding all their needs and requirements. What do you say, Tess?
Completely agree with James. I think it's more personalised when you go and see a mortgage broker. Obviously, they have a duty of care to make sure that you can afford your mortgage payment. You actually go through like affordability with you. That's it. They'll be honest with you. If they don't think that you can afford it, they will be open and honest with you. They'll tell you to find a cheaper house, or they'll tell you to put a bit more deposit down. They're just honest. Whereas I think mortgage bankers, I don't think they're as like personal as a broker can be.
Well, is there a corporate ruling kind of thing there as well? So if you go to Barclays, Lloyds, and NatWest, all of those, are they tied by corporate rules on lending? Whereas as a mortgage advisor's got a lot more free reign to look for stuff for them.
Yeah, I think obviously if you work for like the lenders like NatWest or Halifax, obviously they work for those companies, so they will only sell their deals. Whereas I would personally, if I find a better deal than say the one or previous, say for instance, if I'd actually done a decision in principle with one lender, when the people find a house and they come back to me, if I find a cheaper deal with another lender, I will actually change the lender. I will actually do another decision in principle and go with the cheaper one.
Yeah.
Whereas now, if you've gone with a high street lender, obviously you've got to stay with that lender. So, like James says, there's products released every single day. We get about 100 different products on our screens every day that have changed. And just every day, better ones are available. You
were saying about the personal surface there, Tess. Is there a kind of a channel of communication between you and James as the estate agent, which is far preferable, that wouldn't be there with a bank during the sale?
What do you
think? Well, yeah, because obviously if we were just going to recommend the bank, would say just pop up to NatWest around the corner or Santander and, you know, wait 4 weeks to get an appointment, because when you walk in there, the likelihood is the person's going to say, well, we don't do them in here. You need to phone head office. And then the person who does the Midlands will get in contact with you and will book you an appointment in 3 or 4 weeks' time. You know, which actually could be far too late. You know, for a property deal, offers could have come in and people could have accepted it. And I think, you know, the key thing, obviously, on my point from my own company, is that we take the personal approach for selling houses. So anyone that we now recommend, if it's in regards to conveyancing, finance, etc., they've got to have that personal connection as well. They've got to have my ethos. Otherwise, I can't recommend them, because I just feel the client might get let down. And if they're getting let down, they're either going to lose a sale if they're selling it, or if they're buying it, they're going to lose their next dream home, because things are just not going correct as well. And it is one thing that, you know, we try and, you know, everyone we recommend is independent anyway, but it's to make sure that we can keep on track of it as well for everyone, to make sure it's a smooth process. And I think also, you know, for this, it saves clients money. You typically using a mortgage broker as well. Probably eight times out of 10. No, you might say 9. I'll say 8. You can say 9. You know, but 8 times out of 10, they're going to save money, and also time as well. Because let's be honest, you know, let's take Birmingham. Now we're all in Birmingham, so we all love Birmingham. But today, once again, I've been out in the car, as I was telling people last week, and I've probably spent 2 hours in traffic trying to get from A to B. And I think that, you know, one of the key things here is that, you know, if you can save time, if your mortgage broker can come to you, sit in your own house, you feel more comfortable, you're going to have access to the paperwork that they're going to want to see and everything as well. You can have a real, you know, in-depth, friendly conversation and make sure that it's right for you. Where, you know, I'll be honest, if I was going to go into, and I'll just take NatWest because obviously we bank with them and that's just why I'm using them, is if I went into them, they've got this open policy now in the bank where you can sit there and you can listen to the person's conversation next to you. You know, which, to be honest, I don't want to be sitting there discussing finances and somebody else can hear me and people knocking on the door and saying, oh, can I interrupt and can I just grab this from you? And there's no personal connection there.
Yeah, I was in drawing some cash out to pay to someone. And
is that for is that drinks for tomorrow?
No. It was a bit larger than that. And this sounds like a dodgy deal now, doesn't it? I was in the bank drawing out some spods for a bloke down the pub. And and there was a woman there doing a check with the person opposite, and she said she read, I just want to check your address, and she read the address out in the middle of the bank, and everyone in the queue could hear it.
But surely that's against the whole data protection, the new GDPR rules.
GDPR is more about storage,
Well,
isn't it?
yeah,
But reading it
GDPR
out
storage, but-
is not good.
if you think for fraud,
It's just bad.
if you think for fraud, you have I don't know if you're subscribed to, but we get the WM warnings, of burglaries, car theft, etc. And you do get your ID theft one. It's like shred your letters and don't just put them in the recycling bin. So what's the new rules? You just go and stand in the bank and listen to everybody and just take their addresses down. I just think I think just on and it's a real serious point. I think is that. For me, and I say I'm just coming from the estate agent point, but also on a personal preference, I think as well. I would rather sit down with somebody who I could sit down with, they could go for everything, and then you see if you've got that connection. I think, and if you feel comfortable, especially when you're discussing your finances, you want to make sure you're comfortable with that person, and you're either going to then use them or not, regardless of the deal as well. I think I don't know if you get that when you're visiting houses a lot.
Most definitely. I think as well with banks, they talk a lot of jargon, like big words. People can sometimes think, I do not know what you're talking about. Whereas I go on the client's level with them. I kind of break it down for them. I just spend a lot of time with them. And obviously I'm available on the phone, like not 24 hours a day, but in working hours anyway. 23, yeah. Whereas
I've seen your Instagram account. You're posting at all hours of the bumming day.
So when I'm doing my cardio on my bike
You're
in the morning.
you're a workaholic woman. I wake up and there's 10 posts from you about mortgage advice. I'm like, who was watching these?
That's what happens when I'm on my exercise bike, I'm afraid.
There's some bloke in Dubai watching them because it's the only time he can get any mortgage advice. It's 4 a.m.
To be honest, I get every single one of my leads off social media.
Really?
So they help a lot of people. So if I can put a little bit of effort in, save a lot of questions being asked to me because they see it on a post, and will continue to do it.
I have to say, you are a prolific poster.
I do 3 a day.
It feels more.
No, I do 3 a day.
So going back to the serious topic then. So what other services would you get from a mortgage broker that you wouldn't get from the banks associated with your mortgage? I'm thinking things like insurance or protection or that kind of stuff. Is that in your remit as well, where the bank falls down, or does the bank just again go through its own channels?
I don't actually know a lot of what the banks do. I don't know if the banks offer protection. I presume that they don't.
Well, when I took mine out, we had our mortgage, and the thing from the bank was you have to take insurance that covers the full sum in case anything happens to you.
Insurance.
And we ended up taking it with the bank.
Okay.
And we didn't shop around. It was like once we got in there, we were kind of being railroaded. Not railroaded, that's not true, because they didn't push us, but it just felt easier to not go and look elsewhere.
Yes.
And the prices we were being quoted didn't seem horrible. But looking back now, the amount that we were paying, I think we were paying £70 a month for both of us for life insurance to cover the mortgage as well. And that was 20 years ago. And it's been the same ever since. We haven't paid any more.
Okay.
We've only got 4 years left now, which is great. But I just think about all that amount of money that I've paid in for the last 20 years and think, God.
You could have needed that. You would have been very thankful. You've slept easier at night knowing that you had that.
No, but I'm just thinking, I didn't shop around. I wasn't looking. Whereas if I come to you, I've got that thing right. Okay, I'm going to need some insurance. I'm going to need some protection.
You don't have to say that to me because it's actually part of my job to ensure that you're covered. For instance, what would you do if you was off work with accidental sickness? Because some people get statutory sick pay, some people get 12 weeks full pay, some people get no sick pay at all. So it's up to me to find out what sick pay every person gets and to make a recommendation for what the... So have you ever heard that saying, if you do not keep up your repayments, your house will be repossessed?
Yeah.
So basically, we have to stick by those rules. I have to make sure that they can afford them in all circumstances. So I go through like income protection, critical illness cover, life insurance, accident, sickness and unemployment. So I have to do a review for each one of those. And if my client needs it, I need to recommend it. You don't need to take it, but you do need to sign a protection disclaimer to say that I've recommended it and you've declined it. I do actually, it is part of my job to make sure that you've got all protection in place. Obviously your buildings and contents as well. Lenders actually need you to have buildings and contents insurance in place to release the funds. So I can actually sort that out as well. So when you come to me, I basically sort the whole package for you.
Right.
which I presume some banks can't do. Is that right, James? Don't know a lot about what the banks do. The whole package. The only thing I don't offer is decorating services, but I know a man that does.
But I've got a card here for someone.
Yeah, if you need a decorator, I'm sure me and James can find one. Just ask. That's fine.
Oh, mate, everyone knows a decorator.
I don't.
You see it
All right. I'll now you've joined BNI. I'll get a referral out of that because I'm going to put you in there. Because yeah.
I know a
see?
builder thanks to BNI. I never knew
Right.
a builder. I never knew one of them before.
I'll just clarify you. Tess is in our group.
No. There's no boundaries, mate. I can put anyone through from anywhere.
And I'll do my referrals and networking first.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good story, mate. That was quite interesting. Because I'd never thought about a separation between that. I just thought it was just like full on kind of war, if you like, between brokers and banks. But that's good clarification. Going back to the 100% mortgage, are you getting a lot of people coming in asking now that those are back around? Yes, or is it?
There's only one lender offering it at the moment. They're not on our panel. So I'm presuming all the other lenders will jump on the little pipe market soon, and then we can start offering them. I do know a lot of people that would take them. All first-time buyers that I know would take them, especially if you've got rich grandparents that do not touch the money.
Yeah.
Sorted.
Is the deal reserved at the moment for first-time buyers only?
It is the first-time buyers only, but it's only, like I said, with one lender at the moment.
See, I've got a question here. This is going to sound really stupid, but then I'm a photographer, so I'm allowed. Is a first-time buyer someone who's just not got a chain, or do they've got to actually be the first purchase?
No, they've actually got to be a first-time buyer. Because if you bought a house and then you've sold a house and you've moved into rented accommodation, then you bought a house again, you lose your first-time buyer rights. You only get your first-time buyer rights when you're a first-time buyer.
Okay, that's interesting. And you can't lie.
No, because your credit check could tell it all, really, because it tells all your debt, it tells your mortgage, tell everything.
Damn those financial regulations.
Yes. Even if you're on the deeds to a house and you've not actually been on the mortgage, you've lost your first-time buyer rights.
Oh. That's good knowledge.
Just to jump in on here, but there is obviously really good products on the market. People time buyers. Just before anyone who's thinking, my God, I'm not going to buy, I'm just going to rent. You can
get a 99.8% deal or something.
Yeah.
Wasn't there 100% for buy to let for a while? Is that still going?
No, not now.
Because that was a big thing, wasn't it? If you had a buy to let mortgage, you could get 100% from some lenders.
But that was way back with the crash, basically. So
oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's on the
You can get some, but it's like anything, isn't it? You'll have an advertised rate, especially when you see it on TV and the big Google ad spends and everything. You're always going to see the best rate or the best offer that can be out there. The difference is when you then go and apply for it, it's going to be nothing what you've just seen. It's always it's a bit like when you do sometimes your car insurance, isn't it? Like on one of the comparison sites, and you sort of look at it and you go, oh, that one looks really good, and then by the time you add everything that you need on it. You'd have been cheaper probably just going to your mate who does the insurance and putting it all in. But it depends if you want the cinema tickets or toys or or anything that goes along with it. And but there is that, and I think that's the main thing. Where like we're saying about the difference between the mortgage bankers and the brokers, from what I understand, get it, and it's you're going to get with your mortgage broker the personal service, sit down, discuss it, and actually get what you're after in the first place, not products. Because if you go into, let's take Lloyd's, because they're the ones doing 100% mortgage, then if you go into Lloyd's, they're only going to sell you a Lloyd's bank product.
Yeah.
They're not going to give you a Santander one or Kent Reliance or whoever, depends on if first time and buy to let, etc. Well, and also if you are an investor, you buy to let, you're actually better off probably 8 times out of 10 again, not going direct to the bank. You're better off going to a mortgage broker, because even though you might get your deal from a particular lender, they might fall under, for example, Lloyd's Group, but that's a specialist section just for buy-to-let mortgages, for example, that the bank may not specifically be allowed to even offer.
Right, okay. And while we're on with you then, James, let's go to your story, because you wanted to talk about Birmingham Airport.
Oh, that's good, because I totally forgot what I was going to talk about.
Well, I've got the link that you sent me was about Birmingham's the draft master plan. It sounds like a Dr. Evil kind of thing, but it's Midlands Gateway to the world.
Well, that's good because I've got a completely different link now in front of me. So it's, but yeah, no, I think, let's look at it. Birmingham Airport, they want to invest £500 million to grow passengers to 18 million by 2033. I think it's fantastic because growing up in Manchester, one of the big successes, and we sell a lot of property in Manchester. One of the big success stories there is the airport, and how they are now flying to nearly most countries around the world. They've expanded it. They're a gateway to America, for example. Cathay Pacific will use Manchester, as their gateway coming across, and it's just amazing. And China, the Chinese construction firm, they went and invested £800 million into Manchester Airport, and then now we're seeing a huge influx from Asia, investing into Manchester as well. And it's got its real big identity now, and the airport's been a huge driving focus for it, and not just as in planes flying in, but the trading estates around it, the shopping that's gone around the airport as well. It's been amazing, and I think Birmingham Airport, this is what we need. However, there's now bits of opposition now about the expansion. And I get on an environmental point, but rather than just saying, well, it needs sorted or, we don't like it, I think, people have to come up with ideas. It's not my speciality, but on a property point, it'll be great because, people are going to fly in, especially your international investors. It's going to put Birmingham more on the map, more and more. And it allows local people, instead of having to go down to Gatwick and Heathrow or up to Manchester, for example, can start using our local airport more and more, which I think is going to be great.
I think £500 million is not a lot of money.
It's not, is it, when you think about it?
In terms of infrastructure investment, it's not very much at all. If you look at the amount that's being spent on HS2 and railway upgrade and that kind of stuff.
That's a different story, isn't it? Because we have two different opinions on that one.
No. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, in terms of capital investment from government, £500 million is not much for an airport.
Yeah, it's not
to expand. And if you're talking about 80 million people coming in, they're not coming to. You're not going to get 80 million people coming to see their ground. They're coming here for
18
business.
18
million.
18.
Oh, okay.
Listen, if it was 80, I'd be retired if I was going to come in. I think everyone will turn into estate agents if there's 80 million people coming in. But yeah, for 80 million, it's 2033. So obviously, there's a good while off there, to get to them targets. But one thing I only learned the other day is I never knew Solihull Council were actually a shareholder in the airport. Well,
it's in the thick of their borough, isn't it? Because that and the NEC. I think there's a time with the NEC as well as.
Yeah. I just didn't know they were a shareholder on it, and I think I understand their concerns on it. Which is obviously on an environmental point because we don't want to see damage to the environment where it's uncaused. But I think there is a fine line between not damage, but sort of limitations of where it's give and take, isn't it? There's got to be some compromise to say, well, look, if you want everywhere to really benefit, then unfortunately we're going to have to lose a bit of land and. Yes, there's going to be extra noise from obviously the planes, etc. There's going to be obviously more carbon emissions, but at the same point, will that then have the economic benefit to offset it?
Well, the airport's got a real big plan as far as electrical consumption goes when HS2 rolls through there. They're talking about using, I think we talked about this before, haven't we? They're talking about using the parked cars there. There's over 4,000 parked cars a day.
Yeah.
They're going to use those as a battery for the airport. So they run it off the cars during the day. Then they charge them up again at night off the cheap electricity.
Yeah. I think technology's coming so far. I think obviously it's we're not there yet. I think on the technology to solve all the sort of carbon emissions, for example. But I think at the same point, if Birmingham doesn't do this, and it doesn't get pushed through, then it's just going to lose out, and it will be bad for the area because if something as important as the airport starts to get scaled down on the expansion or the numbers are not coming in, then at the moment, obviously it's the heart of the Midlands. So, anyone in the Midlands typically should be coming to Birmingham. But regardless what the papers say, there is a split where I know, and only my personal point, I can't always get the flights I need from Birmingham. And I'll end up going up to Manchester or down to Heathrow.
So are we getting new routes associated with Birmingham? Because we went through all the phase of having... there was we had the flight to New Jersey with Continental for a long time, and then that all of a sudden stopped.
Yeah.
We've got Emirates at the moment flying out to Dubai. I mean, I love watching the A380 take off there and go through. But unless it's all very well getting infrastructure investment, but are we getting routes as well as, or do that naturally follow?
I think that'll naturally follow. Obviously, without getting into. Obviously, I don't work at the airport, but just I've read Michael O'Leary's book about Ryanair, and I think one thing I picked up a lot from the book was about obviously it does come down to the airport itself and its costs, and what they charge the airlines for coming in, and if it gets too expensive, then airlines will naturally, especially with fuel prices around the world, and obviously consumers like us all here and the people watching, we want cheaper flights, so there's a lot of pressure obviously going on the airlines, and the airports have obviously got to be sensible to make sure that it becomes affordable for the aircraft actually to be in, landing and, being on the taxi runway, etc., and what their slot price is, and not, for example, and East Midlands could pop up and go, well, we can do it a lot cheaper, and all of a sudden they can have a successful airport, and people will travel. It's one of those, isn't it, where you could say I only live 20 minutes away from the airport, but if I'm going to save £100, I would rather drive the 45 minutes, and a lot of people do think like that.
I mean, there's an interesting thing with the branding as well, because if you think about with the influence of HS2, so we've got you land at Birmingham Airport, you're an hour to London, and you're 45 minutes to Heathrow on the spur that comes off there. Do they then really fly into and say that Birmingham is a step away from London, or do we just become London Birmingham Airport? LBHX.
Yeah, it's good. Well, I think that's going to fall part of the HS2 part, though, isn't it? I think of quite a lot of their plans.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is that if Solihull Council is a stakeholder within it, you'd want them to see them belligerent about the fact that they want to keep the brand as being it's a Midlands entity rather than tacking onto London. But actually, financially, the smart move might be to go. Actually, we are London Birmingham.
But yeah, of course, because especially obviously only going to be it'll be about an hour, won't it, from the airport, from there, but it's going to be. I understand that concept, because London's the powerhouse, of the UK. It's never going to really change. Yes, there's more diversity where we're seeing the northern powerhouse where the money is being, pushed into the areas that are being more or less devolved, and the councils, the mayors. So we have Andy Street, for example, and he's able then to rejuvenate the areas, and everyone can benefit from there. But at the same point, do we want to be London? But this is Birmingham. Don't forget. Birmingham's just, it's the second city. So it comes down to, and I've said this on quite a few shows, is, Birmingham needs to get its identity together. It needs to know what it wants to do, and it's strange because I speak to Birmingham like it's a person, but it does need that, where Manchester's very clear. If you go around the world and you say Manchester, everyone knows Manchester. Yes, granted, they'll probably say Manchester United or Manchester City, and the two football clubs have got the big pull power in there, but they're aware of Manchester. If people are looking for flights, and I only know this from my travel into Asia, and when we do the property exhibitions, and you do speak to people, instantly they always say what London or Manchester is for flights. Now and again people will mention Birmingham, but over the years, look at it. We've got the big, we've got Emirates obviously flying in. And we were down to 2 a day, we're now at 3 a day. We've got the A380 flying in, which is, it's just massive, isn't it? It's huge. From there, obviously that's acting as a big gateway to be pushing across. Obviously, we have the local, the Flybe airline, obviously was flying, still flying. Obviously, there was a bit of turmoil with them, not recently. So, but it could be doing a lot more. I think it could be a major thing. And I think for all year round holidays as well, for getting your Thompsons, your Thomas Cooks of the world, not just in your school holidays, but, the more constant flights and, and different long haul holidays as well. And for for me, that's why that's why I picked this story, is this is huge for the area. For jobs alone, this is massive. This is, I think the figures that I was looking at, this is something like 2.1 billion to the economy, this expansion.
Which is good investment.
Which it just has to. I do understand the environmental point and everything, but I just think, if you shoot it down too much, it will get to a point where people will start to look at different areas. We've seen it with London, haven't we? Heathrow for years has been expand. And because obviously you've had that, the sort of to and against, and the against have been going, more options start getting looked at.
Mm.
You know, Gatwick obviously then wants to challenge it more and more. You know, we then had Boris's idea of putting the airport out on the was it the Kent Estuary, I think it was, or the estuary towards there.
Then Ryanair could fly there as London Airport because it's really close.
It's really close. Well, it's a bit like I don't particularly like calling it London Luton, for example, or London London Stansted.
Tough because they've grabbed onto that and
they've grabbed onto it. You know, they're on the outskirts, but I think you've got to look at it for the local. You know, and the areas are changing, aren't we? You know, we've just recently had warnings, haven't we, from JLR? They've put production down. They're on about job losses. Tesco have said, there might be some job losses, but people might be relocated. And as the world moves, we just have to change with the times. But one thing's for certain is, you know, if it's a global economy, and Birmingham is a massive, massive, city that's obviously linked around the world for all different types of people, all different countries, and we need that connection. Let's not have it where people fly into Heathrow and come to Birmingham for a day or two, and then go back down to London. Why don't they come to Birmingham, stay for a week or two, and then visit London for a day or two?
Tess, what do you want out of your airport, mate?
What do you want, Tess, apart from good flights to the sun?
I'm not political at all when it comes to it, but as long as they sell good burgers and the flights are quite comfortable.
You say good burgers?
Good burgers.
I always have cheap meals on my way on holiday. I have like KFC. Actually, they need a better fast food restaurant because KFC
Mate,
was not a McDonald's there.
To get a decent KFC, that might take $500 million on its own.
I need a forum to go on. I need a McDonald's.
Okay, can I just give you an interesting thing then? This will surprise you. So Birmingham Airport has been voted one of the best places to eat.
Really?
Yeah, for a dining experience.
What, in Birmingham Airport?
In Birmingham Airport, yeah.
Blimey. No. I mean, as in Birmingham Airport is the best place to eat in Birmingham Airport.
No, it's across. I can't remember exactly what it is. I'll have to have a quick look. But it was. I remember seeing it was voted the best place to eat. And I think it was across all the airports.
Raymond Blanc was second.
But it's weird because I went through Stansted not too long ago, and I have to admit that was really good. You know, you've got everything going through there.
Yeah, no, the airports have really upped the game as far as
it's just an absolute nightmare to get to. I think people forget from here to Stansted. So if you want, and I think this is a good example. I was flying to Denmark and I had to fly to a particular place in Denmark, and the only airport that I can go from at the moment is Stansted. Well, Birmingham to Stansted is nearly 4 hours, just under 4 hours. You know, in the car, which when your flight's at 7 o'clock in the morning, you know, that's a really early, get up time, and you've got all the roadworks. So you could go and obviously check into a hotel, but the hotel costs are then expensive. And then this is one of these things where you just think, let's get it local. Let's really, we're on a good property, increase at the moment. Birmingham today, on the 30th of January, again, tipped to be one of the best places to invest in property. In the UK, it's now becoming, not my words, but it's all on the news, so you can go and check it. It's the new London hotspot. This is where you should be investing now. It's Birmingham, and things like this with the airport, getting the growth, getting everyone coming in. This is why we need it. And Solihull, for example, I know that some councillors, not all of them, but some of them are worried about it. But go and tell that to everyone in the area who's going to benefit from this.
Tess, are you from the west side of Birmingham, or
I'm from kind of Great Bar.
So the north.
I'm like, very outskirts.
Yeah, north and towards the west a little bit. And
James, really? I never knew that.
Well, yeah, but James is to the west as well.
Oh, you're to the west of that.
But did you ever feel like, because Great Bar's not horrifically far out for Birmingham Airport, but I think the northwest, if you saw an investment, there's a lot of people in the northwest out towards the Black Country would rather see the investment as a second airport rather than Birmingham Airport expanding. I don't know if there's any land. Don't get me wrong. I haven't done a feasibility study for this, but it's just I just feel like sometimes the northwest of Birmingham gets pretty badly left out, particularly the Black Country.
To be fair, though, to get from the south to the north side of Birmingham, it takes you a good 40 minutes in a car. It's like a little land of its own.
It is. That's what I'm saying.
It's not like a little town. Like to get here tonight, I've had to drive. It was about 30 minutes. It's took me quite a while.
Yeah.
So I think obviously people who live in the Solihull area would be quite angry because obviously they're going to lose some greenery. Whereas I don't know anything about the airport.
No, but what I'm saying is in the northwest of Birmingham,
Yeah.
there's got to be some land for an airport. Would we be better served building a second airport to service?
No. We like our green and our trees. Now I think we've got like
right.
Barbican, haven't we?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you could build an airport on Barbican.
You could build an airport on Barbican.
Cannock Chase. There you go.
Cannock Chase.
You're not going on Cannock Chase, I can assure you. So it's obviously that's a great place to go and walk dogs, fly,
Model aircraft.
fly model aircraft, and depending on what forums you're on, there's other reasons for Cannock Chase. But we'll leave that to people's own imagination. But if you think about it, I get what you're saying. If it was going to go to the northwest, but really, where would it go? You'd probably end up going to Wolverhampton area. I don't think there's the land. I think you'd end up hitting into Shropshire area, which, to be honest, would you rather just have one nice big airport that you know what you're going to get when you get there, it goes everywhere, or do you want to whittle it down more? I think what the key thing is going to come is just have good public transport going into it.
Well, and the key thing is if you're going to update the airport at the west of Birmingham, you've got to get infrastructure that gets people to the northwest and the northwest and the west of Birmingham far more easily, because at the moment the crosstown traffic, the crosstown infrastructure routes, they're not there.
Well, that's what we're waiting for Mr. Andy Street to do, aren't we? Because he's obviously said he wants to rejuvenate the whole of the sort of the Black Country, which has been sort of forgotten a little bit.
Exactly. I think he's dead right. Whether he's got the right plan or not is a different answer.
Yeah, I think, well, look, we talked about it last week, didn't we? We talked about public transport and the metro, and I think the metro is going to be a big, one of the big plus signs for this. So, if that ends up going into Dudley, which obviously the plans are showing, then it's going to give that link, and I think that's where you're going to see the expansion coming from. Today, it was announced that one of the old derelict buildings there is going to come down and make way for an £82 million scheme, in Dudley city centre. And I think this is what we want to see. These are places where, when I'm speaking to property investors and I'll say, look, you want to look at Dudley, and I'd rather have Birmingham city centre. And it all comes down to, your strategy, especially on an investor. But for example, I've got properties there at the moment, fully completed. I'm not plugging it for a reason. But fully completed, tenants in situ, and you're getting 7% return, hands off, doing nothing. In Dudley. Now, the property price is about 90 grand for a one bed. Now, if you wanted a brand new one bedroom property in Birmingham, well, you're probably looking at realistically £180,000, and you won't achieve 7%, regardless. I don't care what people are saying out there and their advertisements. When you start to run the numbers, you're not always going to get them type of numbers. You're going to be looking at your fives and, probably your 5.5s. If you do get a little bit more than that, it should be classed as a bonus. And when you're on the outskirts, you can get a lot more for your money, from there. And I think this is one of the key things. Sometimes on your property investment part, before the infrastructure, you've got to get in first, and then you're going to see the benefits. And I agree with you, Ewan. Look, Dudley, a lot of history, from, in the area, proper working working town. It's been forgotten, it's sort of been the poor man's cousin, hasn't it, in a way? When Merry Hill Shopping Centre opened up, that really shut down Dudley.
Famous again now, didn't they?
They did, yeah. They were filming there not too long ago. They were back in the museum, the closest they've got to Birmingham. So,
going to the museum now, aren't they? So it's become like a national.
well, I think it's a great point, Tess, because I think you look at that. You got Peaky Blinders, everyone loves it, and then the closest they actually got to Birmingham is Dudley, at the museum. Filming it, not actually in Birmingham itself, but that just shows it. I think now that a place that was forgotten, what we're now seeing is it's starting to come back, and it's one of them where property investors say to us, "Where's the next place?" I know you want to talk about it this week, but we'll leave that till next week. But that's one area I would now be looking at and saying, look, now developers are moving in, they're buying up the old buildings, the plans have been approved, or they've been given sort of the outline planning, so they're getting all the good signals. That's when you want to start coming in. The infrastructure is going to follow, but they want to see the demand, because if the demand's not there, why would you spend millions getting a tram to come to Dudley if you haven't got people living there who are going to use it all day long?
Yeah.
So
which leads on to my story.
What is it?
My story was an article in the Birmingham Mail, which was basically saying that Birmingham is a tale of two cities. There is a wealthy side, there is an affluent side, and then there is a downtrodden element to it that's actually coexisting in the same areas. And it was quite interesting. So if you look at the area that's out to the, there's a picture here of St Paul's, and the jewellery quarter area around there, and all the way across through up to Bennett's Hill and down through that area there, there's a really good, vibrant shops, offices, businesses, restaurants, bars, that kind of stuff. And it works really, really well. And we talked about the jewellery quarter last week. But if I just scroll up, you've got a full bull ring there, which looks amazing over Christmas. And then if you go on down, there's a completely empty Grand Central Atrium on Boxing Day because there was no trains. And then when you start to look down at the shops that there are, even in areas where there's vibrant businesses taking place, you've got shutdowns around. Do you remember Martineau Square? I mean, that used to have Midland Educational. There was Oasis. There was a lot of really kind of cool shops in that area. And they're all gone. They're all disappearing. There's a picture here of an arcade, a Subway near Corporation Street. And I remember my father used to take me on a Thursday, which was his day off. We used to go in there for lunch. And it was always, the place was packed, I remember it. And it's all gone. That whole row of shops around that area is completely gone. So all of the main infrastructure, like the big developments like Bullring and so on, and you were saying about Merry Hill, everything around that infrastructure seems to have been killed. All the shops up from Suffolk Queensway up towards the Bullring, those are all just dying a death. And no one's doing anything.
I think it's because they've made such a fancy Bullring, haven't they? So as soon as you say you're going to go shopping, you'd go straight to that's where most of the shops are going to be. So you're going to do the rest of your shopping around there. Not actually sure what's going to... What do you think?
I think it comes down to rates.
I was going to say, is it greedy landlords and rates, or is it just rates?
I think there's a bit of both, to be honest, because, being from the northeast of England, obviously we have a famous football owner who gets dubbed the king of the high street. He's a bit of Marmite, isn't he? You either love him or you hate him. Obviously, I hate him because of the football club and how that's run. But on a high street point, he has some very valid points on property where, if you look at the House of Fraser takeover, he was quite blunt about it, saying, look, for me to really get this business back on track, I need the landlords to work with me because what's being, charged at the moment just isn't sustainable moving forward.
But you look at the old Rackhams, which is part of the House of Fraser, and that's 3/4 empty now.
Yeah, I think so, and I think there's a bit of, you have to look at it. And I agree. You go into the centre at the moment, and you had the Bullring. Then Grand Central was obviously, New Street Station was getting transformed, and obviously John Lewis came in, and that was the big pull, wasn't it? And then, to be honest, now when you look at Grand Central, it's a walkthrough. Yeah, you still walk through it from what it was. It was Palisades, wasn't it? We've still got it. Yeah. It's just a nicer version of it, to be honest. And yeah, you've got the bit of the restaurants in there, but it doesn't have, and look, I want people to tell us, right, I'm just giving you my own opinion. There's no character. And I think that's what we're losing on the high street, Ewen, is the character. And I think that's what you're sort of, you're getting at, aren't you? Where, it's like, how can the places on the outside survive? How can they survive if they're competing with the New Looks of the world and the entertainers? And I'm just thinking of downstairs in the Bullring at the moment. Your H&Ms and all these people. And then, there has to be, I just think in this day and age now, surely there can be more creativity on the high street. Because don't forget, we're about to have the Smithfield project, aren't we? Another, what was it, £500 million major regeneration zone of Birmingham. I've seen the plans, a lot of nice apartments going ahead. We're already selling some of them, but new retail squares, leisure facilities. But are we just going to get the same?
So let's take the high path and say it's not greedy landlords, it's not rent and rates from the councils. If you look at because we came through Bearwood yesterday together in the car, didn't we?
We did.
Eventually.
And what? Yeah, eventually.
Eventually.
Yeah. You mean like should we tell Tess this story?
Go on then.
All right, very quickly. So what had happened? Been in the house, lovely house that's about to come on the market. Ewan's doing all the photos, the videos, everything, doing its speciality. Got into the car, put my bag in, shut the boots.
With all my gear.
With all his gear, and the handle of my bag was just sticking out. Wouldn't open. Thinking, no problem, but it's a keyless car. Press the button, nothing. All of a sudden clicked, my keys are in my bag, which I've just put in the boot, and it's just literally locked shut. So in the pouring rain, or the pouring sleet yesterday, and it was absolutely freezing, we had to do the walk down. Luckily, it wasn't too far away from where I lived, and we had to walk. By the time we got to the house, we were drenched to get the spare key out to come all the way back to get in. So not a great day yesterday.
I wasn't going to go into that much detail. I was just going to leave it as a dig, and that was it.
All right. But then we went through Bearwood, which I think, I go past Bearwood most days, obviously coming into town, being on that side. And I said to Ewen when we got there, and I said, look to the right, to let, to let, to let, to let, to let. Charity shop, charity shop, charity shop, betting shop, betting shop, betting shop. And I just thought, you know, when you read the newspapers and they're going about a dying high street, they just seem to pick on towns that look like this around the country. And I said to Ewan, I said, I think, you know, Bearwood could be, you know, and I said it the other week about jewellery courts. I think these are two areas that could be a shining example for the UK government of how a high street could be done if they were more independent and rates weren't high. You know, landlords weren't charged too much, and they could really get a great plan together because.
Well, I've thought about this. You're going to be impressed in a second. And Tess, dive in at any point because I know you're based in Erdington, aren't you? So you're very close to Sutton. So it's not a million miles. So it's not an affluence thing, I don't think. If you look at the difference between Erdington High Street to a little degree, what we saw in Bearwood at the far end of that spectrum, and then you look at Wild Green. Actually, Wild Green hasn't got as many empty shops, and there's a lot of shops in there that are they're quirky, they're different, they're not typical high street shops. And there's a smattering of hairdressers versus charity shops versus bookings. I can't even recall a betting shop actually in Wild Green, but it looks more vibrant and it's got less shops, and the diversity of the shops is there. Whereas if you look at Bearwood, I think you look at the shops that were closed, you could see the old strips that were above the top about what the shop was. And there was just so little diversity. So you've got all of this competition with each other in the same high street is never going to work. You've got to have different shops across the whole spectrum of shops to make it vibrant. Wild Green is pretty vibrant, and Bearwood wasn't.
I've never been to Wild Green Street.
Oh, really? It's just up the road?
I've never been there. Erdington High Street is not actually that bad. Obviously, it's a really long high street.
Yeah, it's
but
good.
I think the
it's
top end of
parking,
the high street is nicer than the bottom end of the high street, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes, the roundabout is the nasty part, whereas the top is really nice.
Mm.
But yeah, I think there's a mixed thing going on down Erdington High Street. I think the thing with Bearwood as well, I think people giving the place a bad reputation. So I think obviously the older generation get out the area. That could be the reason why some of them. And our Bearwood has got a really bad reputation. I mean, if I was to buy a house, that would be the last places.
And actually,
we've got it now because you see, I would say that's one of the best places to buy at the moment.
Well, I was going to say the Victorian.
Because everybody's moved out there, for house prices are going to be lower because nobody.
You know, my last sale there, which wasn't too long ago, my investors bought, and he's actually already netting over 10% yield on his rental.
Really?
Wow.
So I think it's one of them where I agree with that. I think
invest is completely different to me buying a house. Different invest.
I think you know I love the terraced houses. I think the way they can be.
Well, that's what struck me yesterday. The terraced houses, the Victorian terraced houses, looked amazing.
Yeah.
They were great, and structurally, they're probably incredibly sound because
they'd be better in any new build.
Yeah, they built well back then. Yeah. You might not do well on your insulation ratings and that kind of stuff, but you can get a bit more out of that in the end. They look like good, solid purchases, but like you said, the infrastructure around there wasn't good. I don't know what the schools were like, but it didn't have a horrible feel to it. I didn't think it just lacked a bit of paint.
Yeah, I think what's happened is it's obviously gone down, hasn't it? And then unfortunately, when things go down, if you're not going to get the support, they'll go down quite rapidly. And I think, like you said, it's having that diversity, isn't it? Because without naming names and plugging them, you've got supermarkets trying to compete with supermarkets and shoe shops trying to compete with shoe shops, for example. And there's only so much you want to see. And I tell you, I think it could be a great success. A bit like, funny enough, because we're in B&I, all of us. I was speaking to someone the other day, and we were on about the jewellery quarter, and he said, "What do you think about it?" And I said, "I think there could be so much done there." I said, I think the jewellery quarter, they should shut it down on a Saturday morning, and I said, and they should have a market like they used to be. And I said, not you one every 4 weeks. I said every Saturday. I said a bit like Bescott Market at Walsall type of. But maybe you'll have your own identity, but where it's on every week between if it's 9 till 3 or whatever, 9 till 2, and then you might have it where it's all independent traders and really get that community feel because it could be great. I think
They always just completely disappeared. I mean, I remember where Bescott was. There used to be one in Walsall as well. Remember down the bottom of the Walsall High Street where the big bank used to be. There used to be a little market there. I went shopping there a couple of weeks ago. There was 3 stores. I was like, it's just completely disappeared. All nice things that have just disappeared.
Changing, and I think it comes down to people like ourselves and the people watching. You know, if you want your area to flourish and do well and be proud of your area, I think that's the key thing, isn't it? It's you've got to come up with it, and sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands. If it's the case of forming a group that can champion at the council to say, look, these are ideas. Your local councillor, and say, these are ideas that we've got. Look for funding options, support, etc. And really turn it. I'll tell you, there's another great place would be Blackheath near Rowley Regis. That's a thriving little place. You've got your little indoor market, all your independent traders there. Which is wonderful because if you want something, you're going to get it in there pretty much. And then down the high street, yes, you've got your couple of brand names, but most of your shops there are independents. And I just think when you go there on a Saturday, it's packed. I go there to get my meat from the butchers. So
I went to a sunbed shop when I was about 21. It's still there now.
You go to a sunbed shop, you?
Funny enough, no. I spend a lot of time working on railway lines, so I've got a classic farmer's tan, and it's stained now. So it's like I've got a line on my arms that doesn't change throughout the whole of the summer or the winter.
Well, I think that's it. I think when we've said the sunbed shop, and then we're about to drop to -10 tonight, I think that's probably the best time now to wrap it up, and then we need to get off.
This show, the Birmingham Property News, is sponsored to you by a sunbed shop near you.
Don't forget to buy cream.
You could, absolutely, you could. No, the Birmingham Property News is sponsored by Barrows and Forrester. Something to do with the bloke on the opposite side of the table as well at the moment. They're an estate agents in the Hockley area of Birmingham, and they've got some fantastic properties. Big £500,000 property coming on that I went and photographed yesterday. We did a little walk around video of it. It's so brilliant. It's quirky. The kitchen's unbelievable. The bedrooms are massive. The upstairs is planned beautifully. And that's on the Barrows and Forrester website. If you'd like to go and check that out, then you can go and have a look at the property in Albury, and maybe you'll buy it. Who knows?
It will be.
If you'd like to sponsor this podcast, though, and oust them from the purposes of sponsorship, then you can. So if you're into the property market in any way and you feel like you'd like to sponsor this episode, then just get in touch with us and we'll sort that out for you. But until then, Barrows and Forrester are paying the bill.
We are.
You are.
Thank you very much. Lovely guys.
Where can everyone get a hold of you, Tess?
You can ring me on my mobile, which is 07572 580 920. You can even text me if you want.
And you turn that off at night. It's a business phone number. No one's ringing you up for.
At 8 p.m. So if you want to ring me at like 10 to 8, that's fine. 8 p.m. No.
Well, and James, where would you be?
Yeah, I was just checking. Turned the microphone off by accident, and you haven't heard us for the past hour. Yeah, you can get me on 0121 296 2600 or log on to the website, which is after the 3 W's, barrowsandforrester.co.uk. And we're also on Facebook.
Yes. My name's Ewen Rankin. Get me at Ewen Rankin on Twitter. You can also follow me on Instagram at 12 Space Media, because that's the photographic firm and media firm that I have.
Very good firm.
Thanks. We'll be back in next week. We'll have 3 stories. We've got another photographer coming. That should be interesting. Wow. And no, it won't be like that. He's a good pal. And we'll have a load of other discussion about all things property in Birmingham. Join us next week.
Bye-bye.